Homage to the Buddha, homage to the Dharma, homage to the Sangha. So I'm doing a Dharma talk tonight called The Complete Realized Nature is All Things Just as They Are. And I want to talk about verses 24 and 25 from Vasubandhu's book, his little treatise called 30 Verses on Consciousness Only. And Ben Connelly comes to our rescue. He's written a book called, and some of you've already seen this, Inside Vasubandhu's Yogacara, the Practitioner's Guide. And in here, he does the same thing he did in the Three Natures book. He goes verse by verse and offers commentary on each verse. And with any luck, we're a little bit familiar with some of these things from our intensive practice period. The two verses, I'll read them here. The imaginary is without self by definition. The other dependent does not exist by itself. The third is no self. That is the complete realized nature of all phenomena, which is thusness. Since it is always already thus, projection only. So he's got the three natures in here, the imaginary, the other dependent, and the third, which is the complete realized nature. And I want to begin by mentioning that projection only, the last two words in these two verses, projection only, is another way of saying imaginary nature. Projection only is how we see things based on our karmic conditioning and everything else that brings us to see things in the way we do. The structure of our eyes, for example, and other senses, whether we're rich or poor, what we ate for breakfast, that we're human and not a mouse, etc., etc. The third, as I said, refers to the third nature, the complete realized. So now, knowing this, I want to read the verses again, partly so that we can get them better in our minds, and partly because I think knowing what projection only helps a little bit. Knowing what projection only is helps a little bit. Okay, so the two verses. The imaginary is without self by definition. The other dependent does not exist by itself. The third is no self. That is the complete realized nature of all phenomena, which is thusness, since it is always already thus, projection only. And I want to begin at the end. Vasubandhu is making an extraordinary claim in these verses. He's saying that the complete realized nature is projection only. That is, that it's the imaginary nature. And this is quite an extraordinary claim, because we can easily think that the imaginary nature is delusion and we need to move beyond it. And the complete realized is what we need to get to. And Vasubandhu is telling us that, in fact, they're the same thing. So it's interesting also to me that in these two verses, he says that all three natures are without self. The imaginary is without self by definition. The other dependent does not exist by itself. The third is no self. That's how he starts. So we're in the land of emptiness. Yogacarans commonly use the metaphor of a mirage to describe the imaginary nature. We think it's real, but it isn't. It's not what we think it is. If we're not careful, it can lead us astray. This is our ordinary view of reality, of the world, of what we see if we don't have the teachings of the Buddha to guide us. Because we think the imaginary is real, we're constantly chasing after things like chocolate, including people and experiences that we think will make us happy or safe or okay. Connelly says, something occurs in our senses that we believe to be real, external, and desirable. Real, external, and desirable, and we pursue it endlessly. This is a chasing that can and will never end. Always chasing, never getting what we're chasing. This is samsara, the world of suffering. The first line of the verse says, the imaginary is without self by definition. What we think is there is not there. The other dependent nature does not exist by itself. The second line of verse 24. This is the dependent nature. I think that by now it's probably pretty obvious to all of us how everything, absolutely everything, depends on everything else in an infinite web. Everything that is imaginary is other dependent. The other dependent is also without self, without separate, permanent, unchanging existence. Nothing exists by itself. Everything exists in this endless web. When we see the dependent nature, we can see that others are striving after endlessly. I said others, but we too are striving after endlessly the same things that we are scrambling for. And when we can see the imaginary nature, we can know that all of that scrambling is not going to yield what we hope, supreme happiness. Seeing this, compassion arises for ourselves and for others. Then we make the decision to use our energy formerly put into scrambling for alleviating suffering, for bringing good into the world, peace and joy and ease. To see through the imaginary nature, to see into the dependent nature, is to see the complete realized nature. In these two verses, Vasubandhu offers 4 ways for us to see, to know the complete realized nature. 4 ways to see and know the complete realized nature. The first is the complete realized nature is non-self. As that third line of the first verse says, the third is no self nature. Complete realized nature is non-self. So it too, like the imaginary and the dependent nature, is characterized by no self. And not just characterized by it, because it actually is no self. There is nothing that we can think of that has self, not even enlightenment, not even the complete realized nature. So we can see how emptiness characterizes all 3 natures. Emptiness, this teaching that there is no separate, independently existing permanent self. Then Vasubandhu says in verse 25, the second verse, the complete realized nature of all phenomena, which is thusness, since it is always already thus, projection only. And one of the things about these two verses is that the first one, 24, doesn't end at the end of it. It's got a comma at the end of the verse. So it pushes you towards the next verse. It's not complete in itself. So the next verse, the first verse ends, the third is no self, that is, and then the 25th verse is the complete realized nature of all phenomena, which is thusness, since it is always already thus, projection only. This is an incredibly condensed way of putting things. He's saying that the complete realized nature is thusness, and it is also complete realized, and it is also projection only. So I said there were 4 ways that it's characterized, and those are 3 of them, and the other one is no self. So the complete realized nature is also the illusion created by our karmic conditioning that we are experiencing right now. So what's going on here? And Connelly, wisely, I think, refers us to Dogen. Dogen wrote a chapter, a fascicle in the Shobogenzo, on the Zen saying, a painting of a rice cake does not satisfy hunger. And that's pretty obvious, right? And the point is that we're living in a world of conceptualization and not seeing the real thing. And if we would let go of conceptualization, then we could get to the real thing and actually live with and experience the real thing, whatever that is. But then later in the fascicle, Dogen says, there is no remedy for satisfying hunger other than a painted rice cake. So if you're going to satisfy your hunger, you really need you need the painted rice cake, right? You need to eat the painted rice cake. Partly he's saying there's no way out of conceptualization. And enlightenment is what is right here, right now, not something else somewhere else. So part of what's going on here, as Connelly puts it, is we do not realize the way by transcending or escaping projection only. And remember that projection only is the imaginary nature. So we can't escape projection only. We can't escape the painted rice cake. We do it by realizing that the no self nature, the emptiness of everything, is projection only. Complete realization, thusness, just this moment. And it is always already thus. So I'm going to say that again. We can't realize the way by transcending or escaping projection only. We do it by realizing that the no self nature, the emptiness of everything, is projection only, complete realization, thusness, just this moment, all those at once, and it is always already thus. So thusness or suchness, we've used this word before. It refers to things right in this very moment, undivided by conception. Just this very moment, right here, right now, not somewhere else. As Connelly says, suchness or thusness, 2 different ways to translate the same word, is an affirmative expression of the concept of emptiness. So on the one hand, you have emptiness, and on the other hand, you have suchness, and it's a negative and a positive way of expressing the same thing. If emptiness dismantles things, suchness brings them here in all their concrete reality. Just this now, without conceptualization. Now, I'll parenthetically add that Yogacara is sometimes criticized for, reifying what the emptiness literature was trying to unreify. So this word reify means to make something into a thing, right? And by creating something like suchness, Yogacara was criticized as reifying everything, making everything back into a thing, and in a sense, negating emptiness. But that was not the intention. So don't get caught in that trap. We contact suchness when we sit quietly in meditation, just sitting, not adding anything. It's in the breath, in the feet contacting the floor. Connelly says the complete realized nature is right here in momentary, concrete, sensual experience. In suchness. So emptiness is suchness. Now, I want to say that no self-nature is transcendence. Could be characterized as transcendence or a form of transcendence. And your experience right now, suchness, thusness, is intimacy. But these are not two things. Being intimate with all things, being right here within them, is the way to transcendence. And transcendence only occurs when there is deep intimacy. So Zen is living in transcendent intimacy or intimate transcendence. The last line of the 25th verse is, since it is always already thus, projection only. And now I'm going to read to you from Connelly because he ends his commentary on these two verses very well, and I don't think I can say it better. So he says, the phrase always already thus is striking. Everything is always already thus. Non-self, complete realization, thusness, and projection only. So those are the four ways that Vasubandhu is describing complete realization. Everything is always already those four things. Pardon the word things. I'm back to Connelly. Whatever consciousness is manifesting right now, perhaps that you are a person sitting in a chair listening to this Dharma talk, is simultaneously none of those things, a projection of karma, exactly what it is, and enlightenment. So none of those things is non-self. A projection of karma is the imaginary nature, projection only. Exactly what it is thusness or suchness, and enlightenment, completely realized. Enlightenment is not something separate from anything else. It is not a thing, but it is the nature of everything always. And I would add that it's even the nature of karma. Each aspect of this fourfold description of Vasubandhu's can help us. And this is what's so glorious to me about Connelly. He always comes back to our practice and how what he's offering us, what Vasubandhu's offering us, can help us. So Connelly goes on to talk about that. Studying that the nature of everything is non-self can help us to let go of the rigidity of our ideas, which keeps us feeling separate and caught in our web of self-centered needs created by that sense of separation. Reminders that everything, including each of us right here, is complete realization, is enlightenment. I'm sorry, reminders that everything is complete realization, is enlightenment, can let a great beam of light into us, a buoyancy, an illumination, a lifting, a softening of our heart to everything we meet. Isn't that lovely? Teachings on thusness remind us to just be here in life right now, exactly as it is. This very moment, however it is, and whatever your activity, is your opportunity to give yourself wholeheartedly to the world. Change the diaper, type the report, listen to the radio, hug your mom. Do it with your whole heart. This is the whole thing, complete realization. That everything is always projection only reminds us that we don't know what's real. We don't know what's real. We are and are in our conditioning. We have our minds and hearts, our own emotional projections, our own habits and conceptions to take care of always. In taking care of what arises in this moment in our six senses, we can take care of our projection only. Every thought and every person, every animal and every blade of grass is in this projection. They are all, in this very moment, our chance to step into the way, into the vow to give ourselves to the well-being of the world. So thank you, Ben Connelly. And I will stop there.